Hello and welcome to Mickeyology, where we take Disney a little too seriously. I'm Austin Rathall. When I was little, I was at a play date with a kid in my neighborhood when his parents suggested that we watch a movie called Lady and the Tramp. I had no idea what it was about, but hearing that title, I imagined it was a live-action movie about a middle-aged woman and a hobo, and I wondered why any kid would want to watch that. Then, of course, I saw a wonderful animated movie about adorable dogs, and I loved it. When and where does this lovable classic take place, though? Let's examine the clues in the film and find out. Lady and the Tramp takes place in a nostalgic version of America, worthy of a Rockwell painting. Within this idyllic world, we find clues to the film's setting. As Lady runs from a trio of street dogs, we see a train car emblazoned with B and O on its side. This likely refers to the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, a real railroad company that operated in the northeastern United States. Lady lives in an upscale neighborhood with ornate houses. These homes, with their stately silhouettes, ornate trimmings, prominent chimneys, and arched windows, resemble those of New England. When Lady and Tramp wander through the park, we glimpse the whole town from above, and we can see that it's set among rolling hills like those found in Vermont or Connecticut. Sure enough, the sequel, Lady and the Tramp II, Scamp's Adventure, opens with a song calling Lady's hometown an old New England town. Therefore, we can safely conclude that the movie takes place somewhere in New England. To find out when the film takes place, though, we'll have to turn to other clues, starting with the film's dialogue. Shortly after his baby's born, Jim Dear gets on the phone with Aunt Sarah to share the good news. In his excitement, he abruptly rushes upstairs, leaving the receiver dangling with Aunt Sarah still on the line. We hear Sarah say,
I there, Jim? Central, we've been cut off.
When Aunt Sarah calls out to Central, she must be talking to a phone operator, since operators controlled the central switchboard through which people exchanged calls. While phone operators were necessary in the early days of the telephone, they became unnecessary around the 1920s, when phones became capable of connecting to each other without the aid of operators. This means Lady and the Tramp must take place sometime before the 1920s. When Lady is in the pound, she meets a Russian dog who quotes a play to her.
He's like Gorky says in Lower Depths, quote, "Miserable being must find more miserable being."
The Lower Depths was a play by Russian playwright Maxim Gorky, which debuted in 1902. This indicates that the movie must take place sometime after that year. We're getting closer to pinpointing when the film takes place, but we're not quite there yet. Let's take a look at one more clue to see if we can identify the exact year. We see both horse-drawn vehicles and automobiles in the film, which indicates that at the time the movie takes place, Americans are still transitioning from horses to horsepower. The first cars were invented in the late 1800s, and automakers began to manufacture their cars on assembly lines in 1901. Therefore, the movie most likely takes place near the turn of the century. In the sequel, Lady and the Tramp II, when Scamp gets his bath, you can spot a newspaper with a story about the Titanic. Since Titanic sank on its maiden voyage in 1912, the movie must take place shortly after that. Finally, in the original film, we see a calendar that Jim Dear uses to mark the baby's due date. We see that January 1st falls on a Thursday, February 1st falls on a Sunday, as does March 1st, and April 1st falls on a Wednesday. It turns out there was a year in the early 1900s whose dates match those of this calendar. This year fits our parameters too, falling after the invention of cars and the sinking of the Titanic, but before the demise of phone operators. That year was 1914. That puts Lady and the Tramp just months before the beginning of World War I and several years before the United States would enter that conflict. So, while the world will soon be marred by war, Jim Dear, Darling, their baby, and the dogs will continue to enjoy their idyllic lifestyle for several years after the film ends. Based on the movie's scenery, dialogue, and props, I'm placing Lady and the Tramp in the New England region of the United States in 1914. So, there you have it. That is my theory for when and where Disney's Lady and the Tramp takes place. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of my conclusions and when and where you think the movie takes place. Also, let me know which Disney movie you would like me to analyze next. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss another video and our channel has a chance to grow. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.